One will knock on your door with a calm, persistent voice, their eyes black as coal. The other lurks in the corner of your vision, ominous, silent, a warning that you're never truly alone. Tonight on I Can't Move, we dive into the unsettling worlds of shadow people and black-eyed children. Welcome to the I Can't Move podcast. I'm James.
And I'm Jorge.
Dude, tell me about your Thanksgiving now.
It was good, man. I can't complain. I definitely stuffed myself to completion, and I had really good pecan pie.
Oh, dude. So did I. And I'm not to be gross. I usually go to the bathroom, the number two, one or twice a day, one or two times a day. I ate so much rich food, like the second and third day, I couldn't stop going to the bathroom. So I was like, this has to stop. So it turned into dog food real quick. And you kind of lose your taste for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit.
There's a certain point where overeating, you kind of get food fatigue, and so it does become disgusting.
It does. It's kind of like when you're on a road trip, you stop and eat constantly, you just lose your taste for it. I don't know how people can eat out every day. I really don't.
No, you need home cooked meals.
Oh yeah.
You absolutely do.
Even simple things.
For sure. Simplicity usually ends up being most enjoyable for sure.
At times, indeed. But let's get on to today's topic. We're going to talk about shadow people and black-eyed children. Now, I've got some good stories about
Ugh.
shadow people. I'll be honest. I'll say precursor. I've never seen a black-eyed child. So
Yeah, neither have I.
yeah, and I'm thankful for that. But
Same.
what do you think shadow people are? Give me your scoop, bro.
So, I would say it really sounds more, the more stories I hear about them, they really sound more demonic than anything.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, uh, Definitely something in that realm of ghosts, demon, maybe like a poltergeist or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, and the reason why I would lean more towards demon is because typically whenever people describe them, it's usually as this being that is just intimidating, it's menacing, or you feel like some kind of hatred, and I'm just thinking like that sounds like a demon.
It does. It brings about fear and anxiety. One of the definitions I kind of pieced together from things off the internet, it said that shadow people were a humanoid figure and they were devoid of light and can vary in shape, but always be a human shape and cause anxiety and fear. And you think it may be an urban myth because you hear about it, but there are a lot of sightings. And I personally have seen several in my life. Now, I don't know if they're all shadow people per se, but I mean, they're in that realm of that type. And I was
Right.
going to reference episode one of this podcast. We talk about sleep paralysis, where there were 5 types of sleep paralysis demons.
Right.
Remember, shadow people were one of them.
There
So
you go.
pretty loco. So you mentioned they were like demons. So do you think they're malevolent in nature? Because I sure do.
100, yeah, 100%. Absolutely. Because there's literally no other force that would intentionally or just naturally make you feel. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'll kind of backtrack a little bit. Um, so even in scripture, we know that whenever people were visited by angels, they were like terrified,
Yeah.
but it was different though. It wasn't like they were terrified because they thought they were going to be harmed by these angels. It's not because they felt, you know, malevolence. It's just
Mhm.
because their presence alone, it was like just super, like you can't explain it. I mean, how can you explain that? And then immediately, also too, if you also remember, anytime an angel visited, it was always do not be afraid,
Yeah,
you
fear
know,
not. Yeah.
right? Fear not something. They said something that would ultimately bring the person to some kind of equilibrium, you know. But in this case, that I mean, that's not the case with shadow people. Anytime you've heard these instances with shadow people, it's just they intimidate you. They're just standing there watching you. They're uh, malevolent, you know. So anyway, yeah, in nature, I would say they're absolutely evil.
Yeah, they're the opposite end of the spectrum for good and evil. Like you said, when angels would appear to someone, they immediately declare like fear not, they make it clear they're from the Lord. They're delivering a message because I believe like say angel, I think it's in Hebrew, means messenger, I believe. But yeah, they're the opposite of bringing good news. And a lot of my research, I find that shadow people are seen only at certain times. I haven't found a lot of stories where people see them during the day. It's always been at night, and there's a lot of sightings with kids. Now, I'll tell you a story real quick. When I was an adult, I was probably 21, 22. I lived in a small apartment with my buddy, and it was a one bedroom apartment. I might have told this story very quickly in one of the other episodes, but I remember we were both asleep because we slept in the same room. And you know that feeling you get, your subconscious will wake you up, you'll look around. I turned over and I looked, and there's a guy like in all military garb, all black, like a shadow person, like total black, almost as tall as the ceiling, so like 7 feet, just standing in the middle of the room looking at me. And I just look over and I think, oh, that's strange. And then I roll back over, and then the realization there's a giant man standing in my room. I turn over, he's not there. I'm panicked. I looked at my roommate to make sure he was still alive. He was breathing. I ran out in the living room, couldn't find him. All the doors were locked. Talked to him about it in the morning, and he was freaked out, didn't know what to say. And it was definitely a shadow person, and it definitely filled me with anxiety. It didn't fill me with dread. I wasn't scared that it would come back. I mean, well, maybe, but it was just I don't know the point of it. You know what I mean?
Right,
So that was a definitely a real shadow person encounter, if you will. But I mean, a lot of times they do come at night like it did when I saw it.
right. And that's a very common thing. Usually they're appearing at night, but I also know that there's times whenever people experience, whenever they're talking about hauntings,
Mm-hmm.
really severe hauntings, shadow people are also referenced during those hauntings.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Drug use too.
Yeah,
Um, Now I actually wanted to bring up a good point here. Um, so there, the word, do you know what the word sorcery is in Greek?
I do not. Is it shadow?
No. The word sorcery in Greek is actually pharmakia, like
Oh
pharmaceuticals.
yeah.
Yeah.
Duh. I know that. Yes.
Yeah. So,
AKA pharmacy.
so if you are participating in heavy drug use, that could be sorcery, some kind of sorcery. And
Prescription, non-prescription.
so, I mean, if you're experiencing that, then yeah, I would definitely say you're opening yourself up to the spiritual world. And I mean, alcohol being the same thing. I mean, you get into a really deep
Yep.
drunken stupor. I mean, you're still,
Yeah.
especially, drinking to excess all the time, alcoholism. My heart definitely goes out to alcoholics. I'm not trying to bash anybody, but I am trying to, but with this, I definitely want people to realize that there absolutely is a spiritual element to these kinds of things, to addiction, to these types of addictions. And so, like, yeah. It really doesn't surprise me one bit that whenever you participate in these, you know, actions, that you are opening yourself up to the spiritual realm and you are opening yourself up for this kind of attack.
Yeah, you definitely make yourself vulnerable, and it's like hallucinogenic drugs. Where they intentionally try to see through the veil to see something, to have lucid dreams, to invite these things in. But yeah, I mean, I know that when I was young and dumb and would drink too much, I would have pretty wicked dreams. So
Hmm.
you could even say nightmares. So yeah, it's a real thing.
Right. So do you think whenever it comes to shadow people, which do you think that they could be that it's not just like one thing? Like, do you think that it's not just demons? Do you think they could also be manifest, or do you think it could be ghosts manifesting themselves as shadow people, or do you think they could be interdimensional beings potentially? That's a
Mm,
theory.
it is. So, as we've talked about before on the podcast, I don't group all these entities, if you will, into one category. To me, they're all different because they seem to do different things at different times and they look different. And I think at the core, they're probably disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. I don't believe, whatever scripture verse it is, a man is only permitted to die once. You know, it's not people like ghosts as we would casually define, like, oh, it's, grandpa walking around. It's not that. It's demons or disembodied spirits, whatever, up to mischief. Now, are they different? Yeah. So you hear, okay, for example, you have like the Hat Man phenomena, right? Where people will see it's almost to a T defined as a shadow person, but they call it the Hat Man because the silhouette will have a hat, whether it's like a wide brim one or a tall one. I've never seen that, but it's really interesting how that's very specific to that. And you think, I'm sure some things the interactions or experiences can differ from just seeing a shadow person. Maybe there's some dialogue happening or something. But even we're both fans of the Monsters Among Us podcast, the Mirrored Men stories, right?
Hmm.
So for those who don't know, the Mirrored Men, now this could be urban myth, right? The definition of urban myth is it may not be true, but it's talked about enough where it does become true. And it's quite
Right.
possible. But with the Mirrored Men, it's the sightings go like this. They wake up in the middle of the night or something like that and have the urge to look out the window, or they see something. And what they see are three men in like tuxedo or suits walking in unison, and they have like top hats or something. And as the person or the individual notices them, they're walking, and then the walk slows down. But keep in mind, they're all in unison. And then what they'll do, they'll turn their head and you start to see their smile, right? But their smile's like it starts up here, and
Right.
then as they're turning to look at the person watching them, they and then all of a sudden the person will blink and say they noticed it at 3:30 in the morning. It is now 8 a.m. and they blink and they're just standing by the window. It's like they've lost all track of time. So that is a very different experience than just seeing a shadow person like what I saw. I didn't lose track of time. It was just something I saw. So yeah, I do believe they are different and they may be categorized the same, but yeah, they're up to no good at the very least.
Right. I'm definitely interested in all the theories that surround it. I mean, I think it's possible that whenever you have shadow people, they can absolutely be more of like a broad sort of spectrum, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Real
like
quick,
maybe
have you ever seen one? A shadow
no,
person?
no.
Never, like even when you're like dog tired at work or anything?
So here's what I have seen. Here's what I have experienced. And maybe this is a normal thing to experience from time to time, which I'm sure everybody's probably experienced this at one point or another, is like in your peripheral vision, whenever
Yeah.
something just seems to kind of whoosh past you.
Wait a
Yeah.
second.
And then you
Ah.
look over and you're like, wait, what the heck was that?
Yeah.
That But like some would probably argue like that's a shadow person experience, but
Dude, relax. It's just a shadow person. You're just tired.
but I mean, I'm just kind of thinking like, well, no, I don't count that because there's people that have these experiences where they actually see the
Yeah.
shape of a person
Yeah.
and you are actually in that experience like telling yourself like this is not right, but then like you have an experience where you see something just kind of like whoosh past you in your peripheral and you're just like what the heck was that? Like, you don't walk away from it terrified. You're just like that was weird.
So, yeah, perfect example, the peripheral vision, because you can be in a good mindset, right? You're not thinking about creepy stuff, and then all of a sudden you just see something like legit, and you turn and you think, "What was that?" And it's like a shadow person. It's like, what is the explanation of that? It's bizarre.
Right.
Yeah.
One theory that I uh thought was entertaining. I don't want people thinking I put a lot of stock into some of the things that I read, but it is fun hearing about this stuff. Um, so we've already discussed interdimensional beings, but another
Mhm.
example of that is that it could be time travelers slipping through one dimension to another.
Dude, I love that.
Yeah, I do too.
Dude, that's why they're like, you see them real quick. They're trying to sneak by. It's like a time blip.
Right.
Dude, let's try to catch one.
Which would actually be really cool if you think about it, because then that means
Yeah.
like it would kind of change that narrative of how time travel operates. So like instead of the movies where people go back in time and they interact with
Hmm.
themselves to some degree or something
Hmm.
like that. Um but instead of that being the case, you time travel, you are in whatever time. But whenever you pass by somebody, they don't see you. They see a silhouette of you, or they see, I guess, a footprint of you, and it's just a black version of you. And so they just take that as a paranormal experience, and they're like, I'm looking at a poltergeist right now, but
Then
it
it's
could be,
actually themselves.
or it could just be a time
Well,
traveler or
time travel.
somebody else.
Dude, I love that. I have
Yeah.
not heard that. That is awesome.
Yeah.
That makes it really fun. I'm gonna catch one.
It does. So if you have ghosts in your house, maybe they're not ghosts, maybe they're just time travelers. And the reason why you don't see them is because but technically they are in another layer of reality. They're in another
Yeah.
dimension. And so that's the reason
So
why it's not
maybe
visible,
the theory of interdimensional is true.
potentially.
I'm having a brain fart right now, but there's a movie that involves something like that. Like you said, there's a lot of time traveling movies, but I thought there was one where the perception of themselves time traveling, it was kind of like that. It didn't look like them, but it's something they noticed, like a flicker or something, where just in the peripheral vision.
Well, I know that Interstellar kind of,
Yeah, doesn't he knock over a book or something?
yeah, like he was in
But I
the
mean,
fourth dimension and
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Sorry, keep going. I'm thinking really hard right now.
Yeah, I know that in Interstellar, they kind of played around with that whole thing because, like, yeah, you would. And I mean, by no means was it ever at any point supposed to be a horror movie, but like, yeah, there was a part where they show him behind I don't know, within the fourth dimension, and he's like pushing up against whatever
Hmm?
that wall, right? Um, and the book falls off the shelf, and then they react to it, but it's not like an act of horror. It was like, what was that? But then you end up seeing what caused that. Um, so it's not that anything paranormal was happening, or it was just he was in a different dimension experience. It was just I don't know. It's very complicated whenever you try to put it into words, but like it's interesting. So it just kind of makes you wonder, like all the other things that people experience, like could that be?
Dude,
Maybe.
it changes my whole perception of shadow people. I'm sorry, shadow people. It's
Yeah.
time travelers. Dude, I have seen, besides that story I told, I have seen a lot of shadow people. Now, every time I have seen them, I have been severely, severely sleep deprived. And a lot of it is when we worked the same shift at the same place, but I would see them, I would get really jumpy, you know, and I would see like a literal black figure. Now, it would never do anything to me or cause dread or any of those feelings. It would just make me jumpy and give me anxiety. Like I would see a black figure move at the corner of my eye, and I turn around or something. And I did one time um, see one peek down the hall, like a face went like
Hmm.
against the wall. I saw it, but I'm gonna chalk that up to I was just so tired, that I was hallucinating. So not everything's paranormal. I think it was just my brain popping because I just hadn't had a good week of sleep and I was tired. So, um, did you find any really good stories about shadow people?
I did actually.
Oh, yes.
Um, just give me a second here.
Bum, 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 bum. Bum, bum,
Mr.
bum, bum,
Sandman.
bum, bum. Mr. Sandman.
I actually did want to briefly discuss about like when they're because like we did already kind of talk about like drug use and things like that, like when they're commonly seen.
Right.
Um, one thing I found that was pretty interesting was whenever I saw that stress levels being increased
Yeah.
could also trigger shadow people.
Yeah. And like I said, stress or sleep deprivation is stress. Yeah. I saw them quite a bit.
So I do have a story here, and it was
I'm
pretty
ready.
creepy. So
It's just a time traveler. It's not scary.
yeah, it's just a bunch of time travelers. Here's how the story goes. When I was about 7 or 8 years old, my family lived in a small apartment in a cold Midwestern town. I don't remember anything strange happening before it started. No cold spots, no strange noises, nothing out of the ordinary. My memory of it begins like a single snapshot, fully formed with no buildup. One night while I was lying in bed, I looked toward my little computer desk, the old late 90s kind with the big bulky monitor, and froze. Standing in the corner of the desk were two tiny figures, each maybe a foot tall. One stood in the open, completely visible. The other peeked around the edge of the monitor like a child shyly hiding behind a tree. Both were just silhouettes, cloaked, shaped with pointed hoods, completely dark. Startled, I turned my gaze away, straight toward my open closet. A shelf ran along the top, empty except for a third figure. This one was taller, adult-sized, but only visible from the shoulders up, as if the shelf itself blocked the rest of its body. All three of them were motionless, facing me, watching me. I don't remember how I fell asleep. I only remember hiding under the covers, terrified. The next morning, I told my mom. She believed in the paranormal, so I thought she'd understand. Instead, she told me I was probably just having a nightmare. I tried to accept that until that night when the lights were off and the figures returned. Same positions, same shapes, same silent watching. For days, this continued. I became scared to even walk into my room at night. My mom eventually noticed and asked if I was still seeing them. When I said yes, she suggested that I confront them. She told me to use a firm, commanding voice and tell them they weren't welcome. That night, heart pounding, I stared at the two small figures on the desk. Over time, I had started forming impressions of them. One seemed bold, the other timid and curious. The tall one in the closet felt cold, analytical. I took a shaky breath and whispered, "Please go away." Then, gathering more courage, "Go away. I don't want you here." When I opened my eyes, a fourth figure stood in the narrow space between my bed and the desk. Unlike the others, this one looked solid. Its hood was lowered, revealing a completely smooth, featureless round head, pure darkness shaped into a sphere. Terrified, I ducked under the covers, apologizing over and over until I finally dared to look again. The new figure was gone. The original three remained. As more nights passed, I started to get used to them. They never moved, never touched me, never made a sound. They only watched. And eventually, as suddenly as they had begun, they stopped appearing. One night they were there, the next they were gone. And just like that, it was over. Years later, long after we moved out, I brought the story up again with my mom. This time she told me something she hadn't before. One winter night before my experiences started, she'd seen a man-shaped silhouette standing in the bedroom doorway. Thinking it was my dad coming home late, she spoke to it. The figure turned and walked toward the bathroom, but when she followed, no one was there. The doors were locked, the apartment was empty, and she admitted she always felt uneasy passing my room at night. Back then, she told me I had created a tulpa, but I never believed that. I had never imagined cloaked figures before, and tulpas don't just disappear on their own. Something was in that apartment with us, something silent, something watchful, and for a time, it watched me every single night.
So that's when you initially started talking about the three figures,
Yeah.
I thought they were action figures. It's
Um,
pretty wild that there were four at one point, and they varied in size too, which is strange.
yeah,
Which
that
is
is
really
weird.
strange.
Um, so for those wondering, a tulpa is essentially a thought form, like it's a being or personality created through intense imagination and belief. The concept has roots in Tibetan Buddhism. It varies. So I thought that was cool, I guess. So I guess the primary thought is just essentially manifesting something because you're just so intent on creating it or
Yeah, I mean that's why I said it sounded to me like action figures, and then how it was drawn out, this kid manifested into something more and more.
so I do want to bring something up though. So just from what his mom told him, from his or her mom,
Hmm.
she's telling him that it was a tulpa, which means the mom is probably involved in something that she shouldn't be involved in.
Yeah.
Um, telling a spirit to go away with no authority behind you is pretty foolish.
Hmm.
Um, and to clarify, I want to say by the name of Jesus, you need to say, in the name of Jesus, you need to leave. Because if you
Hmm.
try to say anything else, it's not going to work.
Nope.
So, I mean, it sounds like they probably brought something with them, or maybe there was something already in this apartment or whatever, in this house, and they just probably didn't make it any better. But I am glad that that stuff stopped. But at the same time, it's like if you're making a guess based off of a Tibetan Buddhist sort of belief, then you're probably not messing with things that you should be messing with.
Yeah. Encouraging the mysticism to go deeper and, like you said, communicate it and to dismiss it in what name? Just on your own authority?
Right. By whose
No.
authority? It kind of reminds me of that story where I think we literally just talked about this 2 episodes ago, where
Oh, yes.
those guys were trying to say like in the name of Paul and by the God that they serve, and then he's like, "Well,
Yeah.
I know Paul and I know Jesus, but who are you?" And the demon possessed man like beats these guys up and drives them out.
Yeah. I mean, it's a funny story because, they're frauds too.
Hmm.
They're copycats, and the demon's like, well, I know Jesus and I know Paul, but who are you?
Right.
So yeah, yeah, you can tell by the mother that she was kind of encouraging some negative behavior and encouraging communication, and then like you said, giving it a tulpa, which admits that she clearly studies or practices some kind of mysticism, and
Yeah. Or maybe even divination. I mean, I don't,
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
it's kind of like people who start out in Wiccan, kind of a nature kind of witchcraft, and they think, well, it's just fun. That will sooner than later turn on you into something more, you know. So,
Right.
but yeah, definitely got to use the right protection prayer, and then the name of
The,
Jesus,
yeah, the right authority.
the right authority. That's right,
Yeah. Which is
true authority.
absolutely, which is Jesus. I want to be
Yes,
very clear. I mean, I'm not trying to like, Bible bash anybody, or I'm not, obviously
yeah.
we're not here to,
Nope.
try to be overzealous or anything like that. But it's just, if you want to get rid of this stuff, that is his name that you need to call on. And secondly, I also want to say it is kind of irritating that she tells him like, "Oh, it's probably nothing," whenever she literally experienced something right before he started having these incidences. So it's kind of like,
Bad mom
why
alert.
don't you just why don't you just like talk? I mean, I get it. You don't want to scare your kid, but if they're already experiencing it, a conversation has to be had blowing rather than blowing smoke, you know?
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. And your point about the right authority, the true authority, the example I've heard over the years to prove there is power in Jesus Christ's name. What do you say when you're absolutely furious and you just want to say something that really feels like you strike something? What do you say? You don't have to say it, but I'm saying like, what do you say? What curse do you use that you just want to like?
People usually will say Jesus's name, but not in a
Right.
good way.
That's right. They'll use his name in vain
Right.
because they know there is power in that name and they want it to hurt, right? You
Right.
don't say, Buddha, but there's no power in it, you know?
Right.
And so that's just an example of the right authority that they will respond to Christ's name. And I will say this for even non-believers that say they're having an experience with something like this, like a demonic entity or a demonic attack, if they say, I command you in the name of Jesus Christ to be gone, if they even aren't a believer, will God will God honor that? I believe they will, because even them saying that in a moment like that, they are recognizing God's authority. And I have faith for those people that God will honor their cry out for him in that moment, you know. So like the thief on the cross we're talking about, he didn't say the Lord's Prayer, he didn't get baptized, he just said, remember me, when you enter your kingdom. And Christ said, today you'll be with me in paradise. So I mean, it is. I just want to make that clear. I do think God will honor that.
Well, yeah, well, not even just that. It's how do I say this without it coming off the wrong way? I don't think it's so much that God's gonna honor it. I just think that it's just the fact that Jesus's name is so powerful already
Hmm.
that I guess, doesn't necessarily matter who says it. It's just they hate that name so much that they're just gonna,
Oh, that too. Yeah, that on top of it as well. Yeah, you're right.
right.
They hate that name and they're terrified of it.
I did also find something because I was kind of thinking like, we've been talking about how shadow people are more malevolent in nature and things like that,
Hmm.
but I started wondering if there was at least any culture that had sort of like some type of positive outlook over it. And there was one that I found, um and they're not necessarily referred to as shadow people, but essentially that's what they are. It's just they're not called that. Um, but there is a ceremony or there's like some kind of practice called paganito, which is a Filipino tradition. So in the Filipino folk religion, they had a animistic belief that everything had a spirit, which included things like nature, plants, rocks, trees. So pretty much everything that has a spirit residing in it, that's animism. That's what that is. So with Paganito, it's a seance in which a shaman communicates with dead ancestors or other spirits, and it could be used to invoke good ancestor spirits, which would be the shadow people, for protection and intercession. But then there's also vengeful spirits of the dead that could manifest themselves as apparitions or ghosts and harm people. Talk about satanic.
Yeah, I wouldn't look at these entities as good luck charms. That's for sure.
No, absolutely not. No way.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, they have good intentions with it to a
Yeah.
degree, or so they're aware of it. So they have this belief that there's like a good side of it and a bad side of it. Sounds a lot like witchcraft to me.
Sounds
You know
like
how
the
they're like, oh, there's
force.
white magic and then there's black magic, even
Yeah.
though it's all satanic.
It's all magic, which is
Yeah.
detestable. Yeah, dude. It's them justifying doing witchcraft, but we all have good and evil instilled in our hearts, and we can all tell when something is good and bad. And when you see a shadow person, you don't think it's good, you know.
No, you're literally just the what was it? Last episode or 2 episodes ago. Um it was actually in a strange short whenever we were talking about Uncanny Valley, how you see
Yeah.
something and
Yeah, dude.
your body is just telling you run.
Your
That's a
instincts, your defense mechanisms are
yes.
kicking in like, whoa,
Yes.
whoa.
That that's what your body's doing. It's what your instincts are telling you whenever you see a shadow person. It's like fight, flight, or freeze,
That's right.
you know. I did want to say, because we did talk about sleep paralysis and shadow people, um, and I did want to say I don't think that every single encounter with a shadow person is demonic. Uh, Sometimes our bodies do have a really weird way of
Hmm.
operating.
Yeah.
So yeah, I overall I would say that I do believe that if you're experiencing this kind of stuff during sleep paralysis, then it very well may be your brain capitalizing on the fear and panic of you not being able to move. But if you're having these experiences in your home outside of sleep, then I absolutely believe it could be demonic activity.
Hmm.
But the nuance to that is I would say, does do shadow people sightings happen during sleep paralysis? Yes. Is it most likely just your mind messing with you? Yes. But I do believe that it could be also a legitimate spiritual attack as well.
Hmm.
Like if you weren't having that issue beforehand and then suddenly you go through a period in your life where it's happening like all the time, then you might need to
Yeah.
probably go to a pastor or a priest.
Or it's a time traveler.
Or it's a time traveler. That's right.
I love that.
See, that would be an interesting thing, making time travel a horror movie concept. They kind of have already done that in a way, but
With what?
um 65 million BC or 65 million.
Is
It
that the
was
one with Adam Driver?
yes.
So was that time travel? Because there were
It
dinosaurs involved in that.
yeah, it was time travel
Oh, it's been a
because
while since I saw it.
yeah, because he was I can't remember what he was doing exactly, but he was in a ship.
Yeah, yeah, and I thought it crash landed somewhere.
It did, but it crash landed in time like 65 million
Oh,
years ago. Yeah. And then you find out that it's dinosaurs, which I thought was pretty decent. I thought it was cool that they,
he was entertaining.
yeah, not a Not
not
an
a
Oscar
blockbuster,
worthy movie, but
an Oscar.
or yeah, not a big blockbuster, but I mean it was fun if you're looking for some kind of entertainment. But
Hmm.
um I haven't really seen, I don't know, I haven't really seen any other, I don't know, maybe a thriller that was time travel, like 12 Monkeys with Bruce
Hmm.
Willis.
Hmm. There's never mind. That doesn't have anything to do with it. But yeah, that would be an interesting take on it. But should we move on to the Black-Eyed Children?
Yes.
Oh yes.
Black-eyed children. Oh, ah, let me in your house.
All right. So I'll
Ugh.
just I'll just define a little bit of black-eyed children, also known as BEKs. All right.
Black-eyed kids.
So I will say this. I think this is an urban myth that is I've never met anybody that's seen one. I feel like a lot of the stories they're hard to swallow because you think, "Oh, come on." Like I'm not so sure. But anyways, I think it's something you can consider. I never want to see an entity like this, that's for show.
Hmm.
But black-eyed kids are entities that come in the form of children. And what they do, they usually come in pairs. It might be one boy, one girl, and the ages vary from like 11 to maybe teenagers. And they usually come at night. And what they do is they will either knock on your door if you're walking home from a pub or something late. They'll say, "Hey," and they're really aggressive. They'll come to you and say, "Hey, I don't have any money. Can I
Hmm.
use your phone to call my mom?" And they're like, "Well, where's your mom?" And then they'll start the conversation, start to get really pushy. But they're kind of, from what I've read, they kind of like look down, and then the person that's interacting with starts to feel some like dread, or
Hmm.
red flags start going off. And then they continue the conversation, or they start to get aggressive, and they look up and their eyes are black, like all black. There's no whites. And then it progresses from there, whether the interaction is ended by the person or they leave or whatever else. So that is what a black-eyed child is. Now, what I heard, there's a lot of creepy things to what they do. So, for instance, so the stories you hear about black-eyed children that knock on your door at night. So, what I've heard is, you know, you're chilling at home on the couch, and then you start to hear knocking, right? But the knocking, it doesn't stop, and so it starts to stress you out. So you're like, "What the heck?" And then it keeps going, and then it starts banging, and so they won't ring the doorbell or anything. Then you answer it, and they're like,
Can we use your phone?
and you're like, "No," and it progresses from there. But you want to go over some uh any examples you have of black-eyed kids?
Yeah, I actually have the primary. I guess you could say that this is like the origin story of it.
Hmm.
Did you ever hear about a man by the name of Brian Bethel?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. So the story goes that this man, Brian Bethel, who was a journalist in Abilene, Texas, he was in a parking lot,
Yep.
and this was in 1996 in Abilene,
Hmm.
Texas. He was in an empty parking lot after paying his cable bill. He suddenly became unsettled and looked out the driver's side window, observing a group of teenage boys standing near his vehicle. They asked him for a ride home so they could retrieve money for movie tickets at their local theater. While speaking to the group of teenage boys, they sounded much older than what they appeared to be. And after asking more questions, he discovered that they were already 45 minutes late to their movie. So when the boys got agitated, they stepped closer to Brian's vehicle, which revealed their eyes, complete blackness. So Brian quickly put his vehicle in reverse and sped away. And when he turned back to them, they had vanished. He would later write about this encounter through the Abilene News Reporter and would gain popularity throughout the years.
Hmm.
So I actually tried looking to see like if there's any interviews done with him. And I'll admit, I do think that this story not true. They
It,
have
it, yeah, that's why I preface it sounds made up,
yes.
like urban myth. People talk about it so much that it's turned into something that it's not real at all.
I see this, I see the pictures of who, they are saying is Brian Bethel, but I mean at the end of the day,
Right.
how do I know that that's actually him and not just some random guy?
Hmm.
Um, I don't know, man. I think it's a very cool story, a very creepy story, but I don't know, man. This is why you get a lot of doubters because you get
Yeah.
stories like this and you try to actually look into the validity of it and then you see that there's like not much on it and you're like, yeah, this is dumb.
It's just, I feel like every story is void of how someone would really react if, if an encounter like that. Okay, what would you do if you heard a knocking on your door like that and you opened it and there's two kids in there and what would you do? And they were
And
saw their eyes and everything.
and I saw their eyes.
Yeah.
Okay, if I'm being honest here, because I don't want to just be like, oh, I would do this, and then, you know,
What would Jorge do?
yeah, Jorge would probably try to help to some degree.
Even after you saw their eyeballs?
But that's the thing, though, is I think that I would be like heavily guarded, though. They're not coming in my house, that's for sure.
But they need help.
Right.
They
Well,
need your phone.
sorry, guys, kids aren't supposed to be on my property. Bye.
That is sin.
Okay, let me give you a play, but let me tell you what I would do, right? If I heard knocking like that and it's late at night, if I'm up, I'm probably eating some Doritos or something. I would open the door, right? They're looking down, they're like, please, can you help us? And I'd be like, help you with what? And they look at me, I see their black eyes. He's like, we need you. I'd be like, no, no, shut up. Why are your eyes black? Why are your eyes all black? And then they'd say something, and I'd just go, like, I would poke them in the eyes.
Like Larry Moe and Curly.
Boop. And they would be the no-eyed kids when I'm done with them.
Hey, what are you
Because
doing? Oh,
I'm serious, dude. This is what James would do. I'd be like, I don't know. I'm not taking your crap. Oh, it'd be a bad day for them.
Yeah, no, realistically, I think I would, I would initially want to try to help, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, I think maybe it would just result in me slamming the door.
Yeah, and calling the police. Be
Yeah.
like these kids are creeping me out. But I did hear a story. So this story came from the YouTube channel, excuse me, called Snarled. And actually, she had a story of a supposed encounter where they actually let them inside. So I was really intrigued to hear what happened. And same kind of thing they knocked. And so the woman, it was just a man and his wife, and the woman actually allowed them inside her home. And so they came in, they said they were going to wait for their parents. And they had a house cat, and the house cat started tripping out, like, like picking up on whatever they're putting out. And they noticed their eyes are black too, and they were kind of hitting at each other, like, hey, you notice anything weird about them? And anyways, their parents, quote unquote, the kids' parents showed up and they saw these two figures, shadowy figures outside, like two men with top hats too. I think they were like top hats or some kind of hat. And then the kids left. But what happened afterwards? The man got some kind of like skin cancer. The cat died. And then I can't remember what happened to the woman. But once again, it just that's an encounter they claim they got in. So like it didn't get murdered or they just had some weird stuff happen. But once again, it just doesn't sound real. I haven't heard a story yet that sounds convincing.
We
And we love
found the
this stuff.
same story, it seems
Oh, really?
like.
Okay. Yeah, it's baloney, dude. I'm not so sure. I mean, it's no doubt it's creepy. And I'm sure there are some similar stories, definitely with, kids, if you will, encounters with, demonic entities taking the form of children. But as for just standard black-eyed children, I think it's just a story.
Yeah.
It's
I will say, I do think that this phenomena is more on the fake end of the,
yeah,
folklore
yeah.
because I remember a while back I was listening to Monsters Among Us. Shout out to Derek Hayes.
Shout
Um,
out.
I I remember hearing a caller call in, told the exact same story as the Brian Bethel story, but they were saying like it happened to them. But right.
Did they not think they get caught? Like,
Yeah. So so this guy calls in, tells his story, but there's some changes to it. In this case, it wasn't teenagers, it was like little boys
hmm
that were at like 12, 11, 12, between 10 and 14 maybe. They're at his vehicle and they're just like, and it's a lot more dramatic. They start banging on his door, telling him like, "You might as well just let us in," and they're like, "Just let us come in," and he's just like, "No," and like he speeds off, and then he ends up saying like, "Oh, I ended up going to a palm reader or whatever." Excuse me. He's like, I ended up going to a palm reader, or I had a friend that did this kind of stuff, like what are they called? Like a gypsy.
like a tarot card reader or something.
Yeah, something like that. And this woman tells him like it's a good thing you didn't because you would have gotten hurt or you would have died or you would have something bad would have happened to you. It was very, very similar
Yeah.
to the Brian Bethel story.
hmm
Granted, now could people have all these encounters and then be similar? Well, yeah, I would say so, but it was just too close to the original
Yeah.
story with some
Yeah.
added detail.
Yeah.
Because again, the in the original story they were like, "Hey, relate to a movie. Can
hmm
you give us some money?" That's the exact story that this caller told.
Yeah.
He said, "Oh, they relate to." It was a modern, like at the time. It was like I don't know. This was like in the.
Jumanji.
It was like 2000. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it was in the 2010s. And so he's like, yeah, no, I can't. And he gives in that detail, like they were already late for their movie anyway. And so it's like, this is the reason why I'm thinking that this is BS, is because like there's not, I don't know if there's really that many stories where it sounds good.
Yes. You hit the nail on the head. They're all kind of the same. And I heard that initial story, except it was the same thing, except the details were just slightly different, but it was the same. I just don't believe it. But I will say a story here. Now Jorge's heard this. I want to preface this. Our goal is to have this guy on and to actually have him tell this story because it comes better from him. But we both know a guy named Tim. He's a retired police officer, wonderful guy, and he had an experience at our local graveyard several years ago. So, in a nutshell, um, Tim's parents, I think it's both, but they're both buried at the local graveyard. And he said it was either late June or July when he was visiting their tombstones, like one would do. And then it's getting late. He said it's close to 10 p.m. And he looks over and he sees two girls walking on the other side of the graveyard. So, as a police officer at the time, even though he was off duty, he thinks kids shouldn't be here. I'm going to go tell them to go home. So he gets in his van and he starts driving towards them. As he's driving towards them, he sees that they're wearing old clothes. And I asked him because he told me the story himself. I said, What do you mean old clothes?" I was like, "You talking decades or centuries?" He's like, "Centuries. Like they look like handmade stuff." And so he's driving towards him and he notices that. And then he said, as he's driving, it's almost like they don't even notice him because they're walking in unison. And he almost like brushes them with the side of his car. And he has the window halfway down and he can see them. So he slowed down till they're right next to his driver's side window. And he says he can see their hair on their clothes. And he said they both had their hoods and they're both looking down. And he said he did notice their skin and it did look gray. But Tim is a tough guy and he's not making any quick judgment. So he gets out of the car to confront them. And then they're gone. And he says he immediately runs behind the van, looks under the van, and looks around, and they're nowhere to be found. And I asked him, I said, do you think they could have hid behind a tombstone or something? He said, no, because all the tombstones in the area were really short, maybe like less than a foot tall. And he said he looked everywhere and he had the realization of, oh my gosh, this just happened. And he flipped. He said he drove home. He was panicked, told his wife, couldn't sleep all night. He said he was determined the next morning to go back and retrace his footsteps to make sure they didn't get away. And he went back to the same exact spot. He said there was no way they could have gotten away. And what he saw was an apparition. I tell that story because they weren't black eyed children. He didn't say anything about their eyes, but the fact that you can see, children as demonic entities being
Hmm.
used that may not be, black eyed children per se, but it's possible. But yeah, that's a that's a true story. When this guy was telling me this, I mean, he was getting emotional and whatnot. I mean, it's probably one of the wildest stories I've ever heard in person. And I know you've heard that story as well, Jorge.
Yeah, yeah. And I will say to your point about these spirits being children, is I definitely think that that is intentionally done.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
100%. Just because we know that, I would say for the most part, we want to help kids. Like we know that we have a soft spot to help children in need.
Yeah.
And the enemy absolutely knows this for a fact.
Yeah.
And so his demons manifest themselves as these spirits of children or to appear as children. And then, they get your permission or they get invited in and then they start running havoc in your home. And
Kind of
so,
symbolic, isn't it? Yeah.
right, or to you or something. So
Mhm.
that's just the reason why I think it's just important, obviously, that you use some discernment, try to
Mhm.
be smart about stuff, because obviously, if you see a child have black eyes, chances are,
Clearly, there's something wrong.
yeah, run.
Yeah.
I
But yeah,
did
dude,
want
you're.
to,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I did want to just go ahead and read the story that I had just to kind of show you
Oh
the
yeah.
absurdity, but I'll let you say what you were gonna say.
Oh, it just that what you were saying. The enemy will play on our vulnerability towards kids. Like you said, your initial reaction because you're a good person would be, oh yeah, I'll help you guys out, but you're not coming to my house. Not with
Right.
those eyes. But yeah, dude, it makes sense. They're clever. Let's give them a hand. Good job. Good job for using kids.
Right.
But anyways, let's hear this story.
All right. In a quiet, snow-covered stretch of rural Vermont, an
Mm,
elderly couple was settling in for the night when three heavy knocks echoed through their home. So not continuous, but three.
mm,
It was late, and they weren't expecting visitors. When they opened the door, two children stood on the porch, a boy and a girl, bundled in wintered clothing, but strangely still. Is this pretty much what you were kind of reading, or was this a different setting, or?
I haven't heard the story. No.
Okay,
Well, maybe I
well, no, you definitely have.
have.
Without without lifting their heads or making eye contact, one of them spoke.
Our parents will be here soon.
Oh yeah.
May we come in?
Something about their tone felt off, almost rehearsed. The couple hesitated, but the wind was biting and the children looked cold. Against their better judgment, they stepped aside and let them in. The kids sat stiffly on the living room couch while the wife went to make hot cocoa. Her husband tried asking them questions, where they were from, had they been in an accident, but the children never responded. They just stared at the floor. When the wife returned, she immediately noticed that their normally friendly cat was puffed up and hissing, eyes locked on the children
Gosh.
as if terrified.
Yeah.
Sound familiar?
Sounds very familiar.
I just imagine Robin Williams from whenever he did that movie Jack, and
Yeah.
yeah, and he was like horsing around and he started hissing. Then came the request, spoken in perfect unison. May we use the restroom? The wife finally got a clear look at them and froze, their eyes completely black, no whites, no pupils, just endless glossy darkness. Trying not to panic, she pointed them down the hallway. As soon as they were out of sight, she went to her husband, who was sitting with his hand over his face. Did you see their eyes? She whispered. He lowered his hand, and there was blood smeared across his palm, a sudden violent nosebleed. Is,
Mm.
is that little different from what you...
Yeah, the nosebleed is definitely an added detail.
Okay. Before either of them could make sense of it, the house was dark. The lights died all at once, plunging the home into the same inky blackness as the children's eyes. The wife cautiously approached the hallway and froze when she heard soft voices at the far end. Our parents are here. The two children walked past her without a word. Excuse me. The two children walked past her without a word, opened the door, and stepped into the snow. The wife followed them onto the porch. At the end of their driveway stood two figures, tall, thin, unmoving. She raised a hand in a timid wave, but the figures didn't respond. They only
Yes.
watched her in silence. The children walked straight to them, and all four climbed into a dark car. Without headlights, it rolled away into the night. A moment later, the power snapped back on. Over the following week, disturbing things began happening around the house. Three of their four cats disappeared without a trace. The fourth was found dead, its body surrounded by blood. The husband's nosebleeds persisted, and when he finally went to the doctor, he received horrifying news. An aggressive form of skin cancer had developed out of nowhere.
Yeah.
The couple never forgot the night those children knocked at their door, and they never saw them or the tall, silent figures again.
Ah,
Ah,
I think of our friend Steve. Shout out, Steve.
Miss you,
If you
Steve.
want to hear our friend Steve, it's episode 8 of Milk House Podcast for anybody listening. But I imagine Steve answering the door to like kids. He's like, "How we doing, kids?" They're like, "Give us your phone.
Kids, how you doing today?
How you doing today, kids?" But yeah,
Oh shit, you
I
have black eyes. Get off my property, please.
need a doctor. I'll take you. But I think the black eyed thing is black eyed kids. It's crap.
Yeah, because I mean, I literally just told the exact same story you did with just some added,
Same, the
yeah,
same. It's
exact
all
same thing.
it's all the same. But yeah, this was a good conversation, broski.
It was. I had a lot of fun.
This was fun.
This is always fun stuff to talk about, man.
It is. And I know it may not be delivered like everybody wants, but we're getting to the bottom of it.
Yeah. So
We're on the case.
that's right. And we will dive. I mean, I do want to point out, like, for everybody that's listening, if you do have a topic that you want us to cover, then please let us know. And also let us know what you guys think. Do you
Yeah.
guys think that shadow people are demons or ghosts or possibly time travelers? Or do you
Hmm.
have another theory? What do you think
Have,
black-eyed children are? We
yeah.
would
Have you had a
love to know.
real authentic experience with black eyed kids? Because
Yeah.
I would love for you to change my mind. I'm serious.
Yes.
So,
We would actually love to hear your stories, your encounters.
yeah.
Please let us know, and maybe you can kind of change the narrative a little bit. Because
Hmm.
as of right now, We're just kind of thinking that it's bogus.
Oh, guess.
I did want to give a little announcement as
Go
well.
for it. Go for it.
So at this time, we are currently over 800 subscribers, and I would really love to shout out to our subscribers on YouTube. And once we hit 1,000 subs, we do want to celebrate that with you guys and interact with you, maybe during a live stream. Let us know what you would like to do. And also, if you have a story, please call in, leave a voicemail. Call us at 972-836-6234. Just give us your first name and tell us what kind of encounter it is. If you don't want to submit your name, you can just say anonymous. And you can also submit your story through email at ican'tmovepodcast@yahoo.com. We would love to hear you guys and interact with you and also include your story in our content.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, guys. We really appreciate it.
We'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.
Peace out.